And a certain woman, which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but grew worse, when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind and touched his garment. For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be made whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue has gone out from him, turned about in the press and said, Who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and saying thou, Who touched me? And he looked around about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith has made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. I know the story, because I continue to revise it. I understand the plot because I alone devised it. I recognize the setting because I set it. Then I settled you within it. The climax comes when the characters that I created can reach me as their conclusion, but after I first developed their character. This is every woman's story. So I entitled it accordingly, The Wholeness Journey. This is a story of an individual's journey, sometimes unknowingly taken towards completeness, traveled upon a road not shared by many, but still related to by the masses, meaning that it's probable that you're currently traveling a similar road, just with a story that slightly varies. This is a story of a woman's path journeyed or laid, a woman's way chosen or made, a woman's course plotted or her course of action taken. I'm talking about her process, awakened with a series of events to get her moving in a rhythm-like pace, steadied by the realization of making forward progress. Visually seeing the reality that every journey begins with a single step, and the steps taken seem to have rejoined her to what was disjoined. Seemed to have repaired to her what was impaired, seemed to have recaptured all her former components that were knocked off of her alignment, bringing them all that was lost back into her containment. This is a story of a moving from one level to the next level of elevation, oftentimes accompanied by sufferings, balanced by afflictions and trials and tribulations, but in the end, a story that's destined to bring about me glory. And I know this because I wrote it. I am the author and the finisher of it. The story begins. Young woman, diagnosed with, accused of having them, presumed to be encompassed with, self-assumed to be engulfed with these uncontrollable issues. Issues of sickness, disease, and poverty, blood, bitterness, malice, envy, oppression, depression, simple to him, but to us, complex effects of causes. Not completely sure of each specific cause for each specific case, possibly neglect or abuse, molestation or misuse, poor judgment, poor choice, mismanagement or mistrust, lust, lasciviousness, unforgiveness due to the misuse or the mistreatment of your innocence from someone you loved or looked up to, serving as your role model who then took advantage of you. Someone forcing him or herself against you when you wasn't in your right mind and then tried to flip it on you and convince you that you were the one that was sick. Someone you paid for or trusted for treatment who accepted your payment and did nothing other than fondle you or consider you and the things that you touch as filthy, making accusations against you by saying that your issues are happening to you because of your sin, forgetting the fact that since the beginning fall, there's been a strong existence of sin that surrounds us all, and it might not be you directly sinning, but that some things just happen. Meaning that sometimes bad things just happen to good people. But instead, they want to exclude that and still consider you as the non-virtuous, which eventually becomes true because the more that they rub you wrong, or the more that they slander you or touch you, the more they pull or withdraw your virtue from you, leaving you dry and empty and fruitless, feeling worthless and unfit for your natural and his kingdom business. The story continues. Young woman crying out for assistance, misunderstood by many, gnashed and scorned by those that put their mouth on her because they're aware of her apparent situations, giving spiritual contusions, opting for passing unrighteous judgment and choosing to jump into unjustifiable conclusions, but still refusing to offer relief because the issues this woman had, man could not fix or apply medicine, but could only examine, confirming by poking and probing and touching, not qualified to do the curing, but only capable of violating her privacy and exposing her once covered purity. Same young woman in desperation decides to pay for or purchase what she sees or thinks is her healing or her deliverance based off of her belief, as she funnels her currency to corrupt physicians through the channels of corrupt men of God, small g, who says things about her current affair, preaching as if they're relating or have the authority over her current problem or the solution of her difficulty. But at what cost? But only at the cost of her financial stability and the strain on her mental capacity once she realizes that her condition worsens and all man has done was nothing other than caused her to suffer loss. So we explore a woman's loss, usually caused by a woman's issues, the loss of friends, family, possible loved ones because you just couldn't open up to them because you became so accustomed to being shut in. The loss of precious time because out of fear, you won't go back out there to grant someone else the opportunity to do it to you again. The loss of your zeal because the same body that you were supposed to be accepted by is the same body that you was rejected by. You was made subject by the same one you were supposed to be protected by. So then you start thinking, why hast thou forsaken? Oh, but he hasn't forsaken, for he responded to your very first cry. The loss of relationship because the one that you best related to just up and left you. I mean, even though they said friends for life, and even though he said, yes, I do, unconditionally, they both still felt best living their life without you and your issues. Oh, but there is a woman's finding several agreeing voices in your wilderness experience that establishes the fact that the presence of God is nearby in existence. Finding that if you just took your focus off of man and readjusted your focus solely on Jesus and applied some progressive persistence, then your progression becomes more aggressive and you'll find yourself aimfully driven towards breaking through tradition, pressing towards his presence, despite the laws of religion or the fellowship that preachers preach against, which involves the association with the unclean thing, or the religious myth that dictates that you and your condition defiles or corrupts anyone and everything that you come in contact with. Same young woman, finding that her self-image was an appearance of uncleanliness in the sight of man and in the sight of her own for so long that she found herself searching for improvements. She found herself not feeling virtuous anymore, so her movements were then filled with the earnest expectations of finding what she's been missing for some time now. To her, it was virtue. Peace, possibly for you, maybe rest, to be put at ease or receive a guilt release or a low self-esteem relief, encouragement, comfort, or whatever causes you to feel as if you're functioning incompletely. Pressing past resistance, finding persistence supersedes passive reluctance, finding that pushing and pressing was the key to withdrawing her necessities, thinking that she could possibly extract what was necessary from a particular point of contact, finding that to reach this particular point of glory, she had to hit her knees and approach very humble, crawling like the camel maneuvering through the eye of the needle, or else her pride could cause a breach of this blood-bought contract. Same young woman, finding that what got her to try was blind trust, which is just what the just is supposed to live by. Finding that on this journey, she began to know in her knower the outcome of her story before it concluded or before it became a manifested destiny. For she knew, if I could just touch him, or what he was wearing, or touch what Jesus was clothed in, I can make a complete discovery of what could cause my complete recovery. And when she touched him, she withdrew her virtue and overcame defeat because she got a deposit in her spirit of what was necessary to make her complete, which was 7 words in her spirit spoken. Daughter, thy faith has made thee whole. So now you can be ye comforted and go in peace, with nothing missing, nothing broken. This is every woman's story. It's their journey to wholeness.